Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to aidbees. It's another podcast with two very qualified panelists with us. We are celebrating World Mental Health Day today, and we have Ms. Swagata Modi and Ms. Devika Nadig with us. Welcome, both of you. We're really elated to have you at aidbees. Before we move on to the questionnaire, before we move on to the discussion, I'd like to introduce both of our panelists. Ms. Devika Nadig, she hails from Jabalpur and she is currently based out of Pune, running Shikshangan Education Initiatives, which is a very nice initiatives for developing and enhancing student skills and teachers' skills at the same time. And she's been in education since the last 3 decades, and she's the principal and academic director of this Shikshangan Institute. And we're really, really glad to have you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also have Ms. Swagata Modi with us. She is a TIS graduate from Masters of Social Work. She specializes in relationship and family therapy. She's a mental health counselor working with Nirmala Niketan currently. And she's been in the mental health services, and she's been providing her skills and services in mental health since 1999. Welcome, Swagata. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Small correction. I learned from Nirmala Niketan. I'm not working there right now.
Right.
Just for your information.
Sure. So, given that it's Mental Health Day, and given that we're kind of talking about something which is so sensitive and important in nature, I would like to start off with the discussion of how there is a certain taboo around the idea of mental health and about conversations around mental health, specifically in terms of how students or how young individuals interact with it. I'd like to know your opinions on how these conversations suddenly turn into a taboo and what could be done to correct it. We'll start with you, Swagata.
So in my experience, and that's happened, though we've been talking about mental health in such a big way and for so many years, but as long as the onus of that health lies with the sufferer or whoever is going through a tough patch, the stigma will continue. Because if you think that there is, you're not responsible when you break a leg, and you're not responsible. It's an accident. It happens. And, we treat it with so much kindness, and we treat it with so much empathy, and we get flowers and we give company, and we are always there for our friend with the broken leg. But at the same time, if somebody's going through a mental crisis or a mental health crisis, whether it is, even a small premenstrual syndrome, and you don't have the same empathy, you don't have the same support and understanding from. I think that's key to where the stigma starts.
Devika, would you like to add to this around the idea of how, say, youngsters deal with this particular stigma and how it travels through to the youngsters?
Yeah, I think that mainly because it's invisible. Okay, it's invisible to the naked eye. That's because a broken leg, like Swagata was mentioning, is very visible. You plaster it, you do all kinds of things, and I think the woundedness. If you read Gabor Mate, he calls it about. He says it's the woundedness that of a person who is the wounded from inside. The wound is not visible outside. So the problem is that this woundedness, and also how human beings cope with it. Now you're focusing on young adults, but this happens at all ages. I mean, you can suddenly have a wounded mind even when you're way past your 60s, because
Absolutely.
there are various things that happen to you, at every stage of life, and this we are not able to cope with it. I think it begins with the fact that the person who's going through this also is not able to cope with it.
Exactly.
And it's not, is not able to cope with it. You can cope with physical pain, like Swagata was saying. You can cope because there is a dolo and there is a crocine and all of that, and which you are pumped in. But you're not able to cope with this yourself. And it's not visible, like I said. But I also think that a lot of this, this woundedness, as Gabor Mate calls it, that is what actually dictates our behavior, isn't it? I mean, the way we behave in society, it also shapes whatever habits we pick up. It also sort of it also sort of influences the way we think or freeze or not think at all. So I think that, so 2 points there. One is that there's a lot of wounds which are not visible. And second, the person who's wounded herself or himself is not able to cope with it. That's what I wanted to begin with, maybe, and then let's see what kind of questions you have for us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very, very understandable to look at the woundedness in a certain way and look at how this woundedness is coming. Do you think that conditioning or specific, age or the idea of how you've reached till an age through experiences, do you think that sort of conditioning has a role to play in like mental health concerns when we talk about it? Devika, would you like to add to that?
Okay, yeah, okay. Of course, I think conditioning plays a very large role in almost everything that we do in life. I mean, conditioning and also leads to conformity. So because you keep conditioning children, and when they are not yet able to take charge of their own thinking and emotions and feelings, the conditioning begins. And that's also the problem with indoctrination, right? Because you start indoctrination when they are not yet able to take charge of their own thinking and emotions. So conditioning plays a large role. So I'm guessing that your question is about, does conditioning play a role in how you deal with your own mental woundedness? It does, because all the time, you've heard pretty derogatory kind of statements and sentences as you're growing up about someone who's got mental health issues, right? If there's anybody who's got a mental health issue, then the way that the peers speak about it, the way your family or extended social circle speaks about it, is never very uplifting, or it's never empathetic, like I think Swagata was trying to say in the beginning, that empathy is totally missing. And therefore, you get conditioned into thinking that they don't deserve my attention, or it's something that I don't really need to do anything about it, or the world doesn't need to do anything about it. Yeah. So I do believe that conditioning plays a role both ways. I mean, for you to become sensitive and empathetic, or for you to have complete apathy and not give a damn about this. So both kind of conditionings would work, and which is why the family plays a large role.
Correct.
In,
I have a very appropriate, since you talked about family, a very appropriate example at this point, and how conditioning and age play such a vital role. So there's this two of my patients, the father is really a educated, well-to-do, upmarket, whatever the family, and he has been an abusive partner to the mom, right? And the daughter has been so affected, who's now 20 something, and has been affected, and in fact has also been a victim of a lot of violence. But they've now they've decided to talk to the therapist about it. So then, and so she first had to go to psychiatrist, she had to take some medication, the girl. And so the father was very surprised. And he's like, why does she need therapy? I mean, I can understand you and I mean, he's telling his partner that I can understand you and I need some intervention, but why does she need? What has happened to her? So he had no clue. Because of his whole conditioning, he thought, that jhagda to har jagah hota and all of that. He had no clue of how his violent behavior or his behavior towards her mother has impacted both the children, and one of them needs help and is asking for it. And he can't understand, and he doesn't want to pay for it, and he doesn't want to do anything with it. And how long are you going to take the medicines for? That's also a big thing.
Yeah,
so I think, what Swagata is also saying is that this is more contagious than COVID. Because you actually, if you're living in that environment all the time, you will also, unfortunately pick up that abusive language, which she just mentioned. And in that sense, it's contagious and very deadly. And
true.
So that's the environment that's become so draining and so negative. Yeah.
So completely agreed with the conditioning and the idea of it being contagious. Thereon, from there, we move to like the idea of, say, unlearning, because whenever conditioning has happened, there is a certain sort of learning and unlearning that is involved in it, right? So I'd like to ask you, when you as a counselor deal with somebody regarding this unlearning, and you have to deal with them, dealing with the new perspective of life. How do you place, and where do you place the onus of like that unlearning within like mental health space?
So, it is little tricky because the unlearning has to start from the seeker of help also, right? So they are, so let's say, for example, in India, we always place parents at such a pedestal, no? We have popular culture, movies, ki maa and baba and all of that, and which as a parent, I understand where it, because we are of the type of tradition we have, but you see it also normalizes a lot of invisible violence, invisible harm. So even for the person to come and seek help and saying that I need help and my problem are my parents or something like that, right? You are not able to say it, because then you will have a lot of symptoms that you're going to talk about, that, oh, I'm anxious, I am not able to get through my university course or whatever. And slowly, as you question and you find a platform and she gets comfortable or he gets comfortable, and then it comes out what the expectations and the lopsidedness of the relationship, all of that, and then you realize that till the time everything is unlearned, that it's okay to talk about what has happened. It is all right to not be besties with your mom. And it's all right to not have wrong Father's Day pains written on your social media, all those things. So all that is unlearning. Popular culture has to be unlearned, to be able to say that it's all right. I'm glad you had a positive experience, but hey, I don't belong in that group. Or the other way, you don't have to feel guilty if you've had a positive experience, both ways. So unlearning actually starts from that first step. When somebody's coming to seek help, you decide, all right, where is this coming from? How? So there are 2-3 schools of, I'm rambling, but there are 2-3 schools of thought, because if you want to do a cognitive behavior therapy, and then you also realize that you have to go a little deeper and go into psychoanalysis. So yeah, that's where the unlearning starts. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the behavior therapy.
Devika, in terms of your experience as an educator, I think it becomes really important for schools and education institutes to become a source of unlearning for that particular conditioning that we're talking about. Where do you place that ownership of unlearning in your scenario in terms of education?
I think it's I place it in conversations, because we just want to converse about anything that we are actually uncomfortable about. So yeah, you sort of, since I am from the field of education and the K-12, that's schools. So it's, we're talking about mental health, but we don't even have conversations about sexual health, for example. It's just so much taboo. And it's whatever is taboo, so is mental health. We refuse to have conversations about it. The teachers refuse to teach about it. The teachers refuse to even talk about it. The teachers don't even want to acknowledge their own sexuality. The teachers do not want to ever acknowledge if they are going through any kind of trauma. So I think that we must begin with conversations which should lead to greater understanding of each other, and also ensure that that our own attitudes and our own cloistered feelings about all these issues which are taboo, today we're discussing mental health, are actually brought to the fore, and we challenge our own thoughts. And why am I thinking like this? I mean, the beautiful word there is metacognition, which means, am I able to think about what am I thinking? Why am I thinking like this? Why can I not challenge my thoughts? Why can I not change? So I think it's, again, conversations, external as well as internal. When I start talking to myself and start challenging myself, that's when unlearning of my conformity can begin. There is in the medical schools, the first MBBS has anatomy and physiology. Yeah. I'm also from a doctor's family, so I'm giving that example. So that's the anatomy, there's a thick volume called Gray's Anatomy, which every student of medicine has to go through. There's a chapter called The Normal Child, which is 300 pages. What is normal?
What is normal? And that's
I mean, what is the myth of normal? Such a myth it is. I mean, who's normal? What is normal? And therefore, I mean, to you, I'm normal. Maybe to me, someone else is not. I mean, we don't know. So therefore, I believe that all unlearning means of breaking those barriers of conformity. It's challenging our own thoughts through what I suggested, metacognition and mindfulness, thinking about your own life and your own actions, being a little bit more mindful about how your attitudes are towards people. And this myth of normal needs to be busted. In fact, because COVID-19 and the children were not in school,
Correct.
as we know.
That was a
And
big eye-opener.
oh
Yeah.
my God. And I know that the world suffered and businesses suffered, but I don't think anything suffered as much as education did.
Yeah. Oh,
And
education, of course.
massive. I mean, the teachers rose to the occasion. India was not prepared to go digital, but every teacher, even government schools, was doing something on the smartphone, which the parents had. But the children completely missed out on social interaction, which is their buffer for being so-called normal. And they were
Right.
at home. They took the stresses of the parents because the parents were losing their businesses, maybe. And they were taking the stresses, like Swagata said, that the conversations, they rub off on you and you take that stress. And they have come back to school, believe me, with a whole lot of issues.
Oh,
With a
absolutely.
whole lot of issues.
Absolutely.
I mean, apart
Not
from the
being
fact that
included.
there is a learning lag, which is immense,
It's
because
huge to
they
cover.
couldn't
I don't think they'll ever cover that. Yeah.
huge. There's a learning lag, but there's also an emotional impact which has happened. So schools are really battling, and and we are trying. We're trying every possible thing through conversations and through being more empathetic and so on.
Of course, yeah.
So, talking about this itself as to how to combat the situation, specifically after a post-COVID world that we're existing in, right? Let's maybe talk about the idea of compassion and empathy and kindness. So to begin with, where do you place, or what role do you think that kindness and compassion can play in, making mental health, maybe better conversations around mental health, or maybe just making the situation around mental health better? Where do you place kindness in that particular narrative?
You want to go?
Who should go first? Swagita?
So no, I written down something over here, and I said that how even getting a receiver, so you speak with somebody, and of course now I see that as a therapist, the role, and because you receive with kindness, you receive with acceptance, and then you can speak your mind, and that's what it is all about. If you're received with kindness and acceptance when you are a child, and if you have a conducive, and it's this whole thing about children lying. And I'm thinking that, nobody wants to lie. They'd rather just tell you the truth, right? They'd rather just say that, okay, this is what happened. I can't do this, or this is what happened to me, and I'm upset about it. But they have to lie because the environment is not conducive for them to tell the truth. So, you don't handle the truth, and then it comes out like that. So, in that empathy, kindness, and to know that it's this whole thing about parenting, and I'm seeing that now because I do certain small little workshops with parents in schools, and they would think that one would think that if you move from a state board and an ICSE, the regular conventional boards, and you have gone to an IB, thinking that you are researching and you are allaying the curious mind and all those things. No, because your parents are still the same. They still want XYZ, they want your tuition marks, they are following you and seeing that you are climbing every step of. So that even if you are the most mindful and well-meaning parent, if you do not accept with kindness what your child is trying to tell you or what their interests are, and I don't mean making little princes and princesses out of them. I'm just saying, this is your environment, this is your house, this is your home. I accept you. Yes, you have to work hard towards your goal, but what that goal is, I'm not deciding for you. And then the conversation, like Devika was saying, is so much easier, when you are talking, when you're normalizing truth and acceptance, and it's okay. Those things are very important. It also calms your nervous system down if you know that the people around me are kind. There's no flight and fight. None of that is heightened, and you are thinking of how to backpedal and say something. If only it was, that was ideal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that good points there. I think that what I do, I mean, what I advocate is that um, kindness and compassion, which are key qualities. I mean, there's a lot of buzz about character development in schools now, and we look at a lot of work done by good educationists. And there's Robert Seligman he gives 24 character traits that we need to develop through the curriculum, and kindness and empathy and compassion feature very high on that. One of
Yeah.
the things which, yeah, and I think that I believe may not be possible for all the families, that having an animal, having a pet animal at home is a great therapy.
Oh
It's a
yeah, I have
great
mine
therapy
right
because
now.
I've got 5 of them. I live on the farm, Swagata, between Bombay and Pune.
Oh,
That's where I
nice,
am.
lucky
So,
you.
so we live in the hills here. It's still raining in the Sayadri Ghats. And so the compassion, like I've also got grandchildren, you can see with the silver in my hair. And we just ensure because what the whole point of having animals is you develop the feeling of empathy and
Correct.
compassion and kindness and so on, apart from the cuddling and the love and all of that which you do. So when they see that happening, and even when parents are taking part in all this, there's a ripple of what is
Well,
kindness. Then
yes.
there's a lot, and that you need to be kind to every living being. If you can do that to animals, then certainly you can do that to human beings, which deserve more of your attention, maybe. And this, she mentioned, Swagata mentioned flight and fight, which is it's a response of your lizard brain. It's known as the old brain or the amygdala or the lizard brain. So what happens? You see something like you see a snake, you will just flee, or you will take flight. Or if you think that it's about my saving my life, you will get into a fight. Okay. So
Right.
all of these are emotional responses.
Correct.
These are not thought through responses. These are emotional responses. I fly, I run away, or I engage, or I just freeze. But the idea here is to move away from that lizard brain. And of course, I'm talking from my domain of education.
Oh,
You
please.
move away from that and allow this thought to travel through your neocortex, through the new brain, which only Homo sapiens have. So the lizard brain all animals have, but we also have the new brain, which is the one which looks like walnut, which is behind the forehead, which is what allows processing to happen. The old brain does not process anything. It just gets hit
So
by emotion.
important that is. So
Yeah.
important.
And so you allow the processing to happen and you realize that what is this that I'm doing? Why am I feeling so low? Can I not snap out of this? Can I not take charge of whatever? Can I not talk to someone and help? Like I teach children, I teach young adults about this beautiful quality of you should know when to seek help. Seek help.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't have to be for mental. I'm stuck with trigonometry. Ask for help.
Correct.
I'm stuck with something else, in geometry. Ask for help. So to be able to ask for help, I believe, needs to be taught through childhood.
So
that in
important.
adulthood,
So important.
all of us will ask for help. What's so embarrassing about that?
Correct. Right.
I mean, I learned so much in the pandemic. I had no idea what is Zoom. All my training. So I have a teacher trainer. And I was training all over the country. My suitcase was always packed and traveling from school to school, all boards, everywhere. Suddenly, I said, ab mera chula kaise chalega? I do not know anything about online. And how much I just kept asking, I just kept seeking from people like our young friend here. Yeah, and batao yaar, kaise kare? Batao yaar, sikhao. How do I do this? So what is wrong in asking for help? But there is this feeling, social conditioning, that if you ask for help, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're vulnerable, and they'll stamp down on you. They'll finish you even further.
Yeah.
That acha isko to itna bhi nahi malum.
Correct.
So I think asking for help is important. Becoming aware first,
Yeah.
and then asking for help.
Yeah.
And I believe that intrinsically, human beings are kind people.
Yes, they are helpful
They
and they
need
would like to
empathy.
help. Correct.
They would like to help.
Yes.
They feel very big if they help,
yeah.
actually.
But that's what they say about giving, right? That the giver feels
Joy of giving.
than the receiver. That's
But it's
the
true.
whole thing about the week of giving, whatever they have, right?
Yeah, the joy of giving week.
Yeah.
It's the same thing about gratitude. So, I mean, they say that when you receive gratitude, that means I did something for you and you said thank you. Okay. So when I receive that gratitude, that actually fills
That
me with
makes you
huge
feel,
amount of dopamine. Yeah. Huge
yeah,
amount of dopamine
that's
rather
right.
than me doing something, Yeah. So it's like that. So I think it begins with conversations and seeking help. And I believe that we are all very kind, in our DNA,
Yes,
but
yeah.
we're very busy. We're very busy with our lives. And therefore, unless somebody stops us and says, hey, I need your help, we're likely to not notice that. So, yeah, it,
Absolutely.
it, uh,
It's
yeah.
very important to also understand. I think everybody should understand that we all are intrinsically kind, and that's where it all begins. But talking about further into the idea of kindness, right? There is a narrative that always goes around that, okay, the first thing that you should do is be kind to yourself. Let's say, helping yourself or being kind to yourself. Where do you place that particular narrative within the idea of mental health? I'd like to have a little discussion on it. Swagata, would you like to add?
Be kind to yourself. Yeah, I get it. And I do understand. And from where I look at it, I would say that you have to give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. You are not supposed to know and do all these things. Uh, and you're not supposed to have it all together, right? You have so many balls, even as a mother or a working woman. I am going to say it again and again because I feel that is one of the most toughest roles that women have to fulfill all the time. And being in that sphere of people asking and saying that, how do we deal with what we want, what my aspirations, my dreams are all about, that contributes into self-care, to be able to give yourself a break, saying that don't expect all these things. I forget the exact saying that, that you're a working woman with children, and the children shouldn't know about your work and your work shouldn't know about your children. It's like that. So then you're supposed to be successful. So it's just that when you can give yourself a break and say, hey, I'm all right, and I can work for so many hours, and after that I need to be here, and it's okay, because you can depend on yourself to do both things. You can depend on yourself, but you don't have to bend backwards and not be able to, and consider that you have some superpowers to do everything. And of course, the support, it's so important that if you have adequate support around you who understand what you are doing, where you are going from, and that is all self-care. If you have a family that you can count on, if you have friends that you can count on, friends you call family you can count on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Devika, what do you like to add to the idea?
I was reminded of when Swagata was talking about women and managing the work at the home and feeling so constrained. Out of a lot of messages which was coming around yesterday for Dashera, one very powerful one was never draw a line
Oh,
around
I
the
saw
woman.
that one. Yeah.
Oh my God! It was like Lakshman Rekha के ऊपर
Yeah,
कटे
yeah.
था वो, and उसी की वजह से इतना युद्ध हुआ ना. So I mean, it was so powerful. I mean, what you putting her in all these constrictions? I mean, to pick on what Swagata said, but regarding the question, which is about being kind to yourself, I have you. I mean, I always give this because for teachers, when I am talking to them about classroom management, how do you manage a class, and this whole idea about you need to first take care of yourself, otherwise you cannot take care of your class.
Your oxygen mask yourself before the
Yeah,
child.
so the
Yeah.
oxygen mask, when the oxygen mask comes down from the aircraft, they say, सबसे पहले अपनी सहायता कीजिए, दूसरों की सहायता करने से पहले मास्क अपने मुंह पर लगाइए. It is such a good analogy, such a good analogy that you cannot help anyone unless you first help yourself.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite analogy to give, that, take care of yourself. So do yoga, do pranayam, go for a walk, find time for yourself, listen to music, whatever gives you pleasure, whatever gives you that moment. It could even be, for me, like I give this example, I find ironing of clothes extremely therapeutic. वो गरम गरम लगता है, straight ironing करो, and I like it. So what likes you? I love walking my dogs. So Agatha has a dog.
Yeah.
Why? Because when you're going with a dog, I'm not making the decision where they have to go. They are making the
They're
decision.
leading.
So,
Correct.
that's right. So being kind to yourself, I think, is at every step. I mean, there's a marvelous book, not a very new one, called Notes to Myself by Hugh Prather, where he compels you to read and to write about what is the thoughts that you're going through and how you're going to manage that. So all of these exercises in self-reflection, revolution of yourself, which is actually Atmabodh, getting to know yourself and what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, how do I strengthen my weaknesses, etc., etc. What angers me? If I'm not in a room, these are powerful things. If I'm not in a room where 5 people are sitting and if they're talking about me, what are they likely to be saying about me?
Yeah.
Think about that, So that makes you really think about yourself. Because you know yourself, like we use the Johari window for communication, that what is it, what's your blind self, do you know it? So being kind to yourself is going to begin with, again, first knowing yourself, First know yourself, that what is your hidden self, what is your unknown self, etc. And then take charge of that and say that, no, I think that I need to work on this. I need to be more patient with myself. I am growing. I don't have to listen to what others are saying. So just to conclude this one, there's a researcher called Carol Dweck in Stanford. She's marvelous and she does a lot of work in the domain of education. We are constantly seeing what's happening and bringing it into our classrooms. And she says that there is a lot of power in the phrase "not yet."
Yeah.
Okay. So next time someone says, "Aapko driving karna nahi aata?" Not yet.
Not yet.
You don't know how to make good biryani. Not yet. Okay. You have a YouTube channel, you hardly have any subscribers. Not yet. Okay. So you are saying it, I'm getting there, boss. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm working very hard. I know my strengths. I'm working on my weaknesses. I'm getting there. So never let anybody get you down, and be kind to yourself and say, not yet, but I will do it. So I thought that's a powerful phrase to share. I hadn't thought of it. I thought of it, but it's lovely. Carol Dweck's work is, in fact, Swagata, since you're working in this field, her book is called Mindset.
Okay. Oh, I have heard of it. Yeah.
She talks about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, and how can you help our students and also adults develop the growth mindset, that we are always working hard, show the relationship between effort and success, simply. And not the fixed mindset कि तुम्हारा कुछ नहीं हो सकता kind, or मैं तो ऐसे ही हूँ, मैं नहीं grow कर सकती, So break out of that. So these are powerful researches.
And at the same time also accepting that there are things that you don't want to do either, and it's perfectly all right not to want to do that. And there are no such things as guilty pleasures. There are only pleasures. So there's no guilt attached to anything that you do. Those are all, aspects of self-care, I think.
Yeah, like you said, earlier, that you don't have to really achieve a goal that everyone else is achieving. You can set your own goals. They have to be appropriate to your own ability, whatever you understood of that, So you don't have to constantly compare. Just make sure that you're doing what you think you're capable of doing. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this continuation of the effort to be aware of yourself and take care of your own self is actually the most important part of being kind and practicing kindness. Really, really amazing discussion going on. The next thought that comes to my mind through this is where grown-ups, let's move beyond a little young adults, but where grown-up people who are professionals or even in the circles of working, there's always a confusion and there's always a conversation around the work-life balance that comes in, right? Where do you place mental health within that work-life balance would be my thought on that.
I have so much to say about that. Shall I go, Devika? Because
please. All yours.
So much about work. It's because I am currently also working on a bit of a thesis for which I will finally do my PhD. Not yet. I haven't yet done it, but this is so this whole thing about career and work-life balance, we don't realize that work is a part of our life. There are other aspects to life also. So you work to pay your bills and to have some satisfaction. And there is your family with whom you enjoy with, and there are your friends with whom you love. So all this is part of your life. We have been so conditioned to prioritize what makes money, what is most productive in the manner of making money. It is nothing to do with your inner happiness. It is nothing to do. So as long as you are ticking the boxes of what is giving you revenue, we are completely neglecting what really is giving us peace and contentment. I'm not even going to say happiness, but that you can have a good night's rest, So, and this whole idea of career, which has been propagated since the time we are children, what is it? Why do you think that you should be a doctor for the rest of your life? Why? So it came up in a conversation with a client of mine who's a doctor, and she has just stopped working because she says, I don't want to do this anymore because I want to dance. And she's taken up dance professionally. And it's amazing. And I'm thinking, yeah, why not? Who says that just because and you see, it's all about basool, na? Basooli honi chahiye. So she has done all her studies, invested. She says, I have invested so many years in studying. She's an excellent doctor. But also she needs to earn back. But well, she's almost 50 now. And then she's saying, jitna ho gaya, okay. And she has. And she says, now I don't want to do anything. In fact, she won't even respond to us asking about silly things about, oh, my head is hurting and all of that. She's like, I'm not a doctor. I'm a dancer. And I thought about it. And I think that is so wonderful to know that this is what I want to do with my life. So sorted. And she wants to go ahead and be a dancer despite having half life with being a doctor. So that's work-life balance, I feel. When you can take the decision to do what you want to do.
Yeah. So, and I have a slightly different take on this. I mean, the thing is that I completely appreciate what you're saying, but the problem is not everybody is so fortunate to switch to another career,
of course, it's privilege.
Which may not necessarily be bringing you the moolah, And I think all stresses about work-life balance begin because you need to earn also.
Money. Yeah.
If you don't need to earn,
yes, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So, but most women, and this work-life balance thing is again always very gender specific. It's always talked about where women are concerned, okay? Because they are the ones who are balancing.
Yeah.
And men also, I mean, largely, yes, of course, there are both. So, and especially today, I mean, in today's generation, I have 2 sons-in-law and both of them are great cooks. So I know that they are also contributing a hell of a lot to the home. And also because both my daughters earn the same as they do. So that's the other thing,
Right.
So if you're matched in income, then you're matched in the work at home as well. It happens. Why do I say so? Largely you will find, and I talk about, of course, my education experience, as well as some extended experience to even worlds of art and craft and music, because I also have a degree in music, Indian classical. What
there you go. That's your balance.
So the thing is, hota kya hai? For example, let's say if a child is ill, who takes leave?
Yeah.
It's the mother. Okay. I mean, if there are guests at home and if you need to prepare, who will take the leave? The mother. Now, what happens is you will find, and I'm talking from the world of education, and I've done a lot of thinking about this, and we've had a lot of workshops on this. Largely, families will do away with the person who's earning lesser. Okay, so you are earning lesser, so you take the leave. So the teachers will always earn lesser than their husbands who are in the corporate world, okay, or they are in business. Because the teaching fraternity, I mean, the teachers in India are not. This is not Finland, right? So,
it's
so you're not earning. I mean, people say, let's copy what Finland is doing, but Finland begins with very, very high salaries, and we're not there. Although it's much, much better now than when I was a teacher, when I was a young teacher, and to now, it's much better. But yet, it's always, like Swagata said, it's the money which comes in.
It's the money.
One salary.
And you're right, it's important. I'm not dissing the importance of money.
Correct. So, एक का salary किसका ज़्यादा affordable है to lose? Okay.
Correct.
Apart from the mamata and all that, which is all man-made, okay, that okay, you have all mamata and the mother wants to be with the child, etc. I've met umpteen women who say, I have no problem if I don't take leave and if my husband stays with my child, I'm fine. I have no problem if I don't cook. But the thing is, I mean, this is changing. But so what happens that you get stretched, and this work-life balance thing is like a tightrope walk all the time, because you need to earn. Yeah, you need to earn the money because because your aspirations have gone up. Our parents thought of buying a house only at retirement, right?
Yeah.
HDFC wasn't giving such low percentage loans then. All right. But today, all you guys, the minute you marry, you buy a flat. even before that sometimes. And then एक की salary EMI में जाती है, दूसरी की salary में घर चलता है. And therefore, what happens? How do you give up? You can't give up. Your aspirations are far more today because the world has opened up so much more today. You cannot get satisfied with one car. You want two. So
Absolutely.
therefore,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's you have to manage. So my last sentence in that is, I think that you have to share responsibilities.
Absolutely.
The couple has to share responsibilities. That's the only way you will be able to manage the work-life balance. Do other things, take care of your other hobbies,
And be
also,
supportive
but
and
also
kind.
share.
Yeah, the kindness is the
Nahi
most
hoga.
important thing, is what
Yeah.
we agreed on all of it.
Yeah.
It has been an absolutely fruitful discussion on so many things around mental health, family, home, relationships, education, school, and a lot many things. And what we really agree upon, I think all of us, is that kindness is really the virtue, and compassion is the virtue that we should go ahead with to create, a better world. I would really like to gladly thank both of you from on the behalf of aidbees, and from from the core of the belief of kindness. I would really like to thank you both for joining in and giving your valuable opinions on mental health and this very special day, World Mental Health Day, that we're celebrating. Thank you, Devika. Thank you, Swagata, so much.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks a lot.
I think it was, though we are talking about a very serious issue, but this was fun. Being together and discussing. So thank you.
It was
for
great.
giving us the opportunity, and do share the link whenever it's up on the YouTube.
Absolutely.
Share it with our groups.
Devika,
Very nice meeting you, Swagata.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was saying the same thing. And thank you, Ashutosh. Thanks a
We'll
lot.
stay in touch. Maybe you can, connect us up on mail.
Yeah, maybe you could do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. It was a really great time. Do subscribe to aidbees and stay connected.
Thank you.